Did you know that there was a Grand Lodge in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which was set up by Moors before Prince Hall? Prince Hall was made up by Caucasians Hyksos. You can clearly see the connection between this temple lodge and the African Grand Lodge in Timbuktu. The Grand Temple Lodge in Timbuktu was built in 1327 by Moors under the leadership of Kankan Musa Musa, who was Musa of Mali, West Africa. The Grand Temple on the left was built by Moors as well, Africans. The Moorish Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania, which they added the officially, the Right Worshipful Grand Lodge of the most ancient and honorable fraternity of free and accepted Masons of Pennsylvania and Masonic jurisdictions thereunto belonging, is the premier Masonic organization in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The Moorish Grand Lodge is on 33 North Broad Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19107. This Grand Lodge is the oldest in North America. This lodge was built in 1404 by the Moors, they lied and say 1731. This is because they are trying to cover up the facts that so-called blacks, who were Moors. They were master masons long before the Caucasian came over. They paint this story that Moors were brought over as slaves. This is the biggest game ever. He really wants to keep this lie going. This temple lodge was built and ran by Moors for 376 years, until 1780. They begin infiltrating in 1733, and by 1781 the Caucasians completely took over this lodge. They ran the Moors out of their own lodge they started. They had to cover up a lot of history real fast. So they got to work with their trickery. Prince Hall was a code name for Grand Master Benjamin Banneker Bey, also known as Chief Justice Big Ben Bey Emmanuel Muali, Prince of the Le Nape of the Continental Congress. He was born on November 9, 1731 in Bridgetown, Barbados. Mary Banneker Bey, his mother, was from Bridgetown, Barbados. His father was a wealthy Moor named Robert Freeman Banneker Bey from Guinea. His father was a Malayan Moor, which are Mandingo from Guinea is northwest Africa. He goes back to Kankan Musa Musa people, the Mandinka. He met Mary Banneker in Barbados. Barbados is an eastern Caribbean island and an independent British Moors Commonwealth nation. Bridgetown, the capital, is a cruise ship port with colonial buildings and businesses. In 1731 his mother and father with their newborn son moved to America. They purchased a 100-acre farm in Baltimore, Maryland. Keep in mind Banneker father and mother family had money. In 1737, Banneker was named at the age of 6 on the deed of his family's 100-acre, 0.40 square kilometers, farm in the Patapsco Valley in rural Baltimore County. As a young teenager, Banneker met and befriended Peter Heinrich, a Quaker so-called Jewish guy who later established a school near the Banneker family farm. Banneker's parents sent him to the school where he learned reading, writing and arithmetic. Banneker attended the school from the age of 5 until 8 years old. He went all the way to the 3rd grade, after this he was entirely self-educated. Until he attended Codrington College in Barbados in 1748. The Quaker are Hazar, so-called Jewish people who come from Russia. These Quaker loved Banneker and were amazed at his natural intelligence. Banneker was a pure unadulterated genius. Heinrich the Quaker shared his personal library and provided Banneker with his only classroom instruction. Banneker's formal education, if any, presumably ended when he was old enough to help on his family's farm. This is a clock built by hand, by Benjamin Banneker himself. In 1753, at the age of 22, Banneker completed a wooden clock that struck on the hour, making the first clock to be built completely in America. He appears to have modeled his clock from a borrowed pocket watch by carving each piece to scale. The clock purportedly continued to work until his death. After his father died in 1759, Banneker lived with his mother and sisters. Banneker traveled all up and down the East Coast. He even visited his family on his mother's side in Bridgetown, Barbados many times. At the age 33, when visiting the city of Boston, he met a young lady named Sarah Ritchie who he fell in love with. A year later he was married to Sarah Ritchie Banneker Bay in 1765. He became a master mason in 1767. In 1768, he signed a Baltimore County petition to move the county seat from Joppa to Baltimore. An entry for his property in a 1773 Baltimore County tax list identified Banneker as the only adult member of his household. Banneker sold his land in Baltimore and moved to Boston, Massachusetts. Like we said in 1767, he became a member of the Moorish/African Grand Temple Lodge in Pennsylvania. When the devil began to infiltrate the Grand Lodge, they couldn't never get past fellow craftsmen. We never taught them the real rituals. Benjamin broke off and created a new lodge to preserve the original A.E.O. and the Moorish rites. The York rites was started with 11 tablets used from ancient Egypt, which the Moors helped them out. The Scottish rite was started by Caucasians who stole 22 tablets from ancient Egypt. 22 plus 11 equals 33 degrees. This is how they get their 33 degrees, which is not square. 90 or 360 is square. They still couldn't translate the tablets right without us. So they made up everything from 3 to 33 degrees, which they call honorary studies. They are fake and phony, not real Masons. What have they built besides weapons of mass destruction? He's not laying stone for real. Benjamin Banneker Bay and 14 other Moor Master Masons started the African Lodge 1, which really was African Lodge number 459. There were 459 African lodges back then. It wasn't called the Prince Hall Lodge. Wake up, people. Benjamin Banneker didn't put free and accepted on the name because Moors never were slaves. Plus we are from the real lodge, the Nubian/Moorish women womb, the real Grand Lodge, which is the only way you can be accepted. They lied and say Prince Hall, who is Benjamin, and 14 other free so-called black men petitioned for admittance to the white men Boston St. John's Lodge and they were declined. The lie they tell. These 14 names included Cyrus Johnston Bay, Buston Slinger L., Prince Rees Bay, John Canton Bay, Peter Freeman L., Benjamin Tyler Bay, Duff Reform Bay, Thomas Anderson Bay, Prince Raydon Bay, Cato Spion Bay, Boston Smith L., Peter Best L., Fortin Horward Bay, and Richard Tidley L., all of whom we free by birth. They were Moors. We didn't need to petition or get a charter from them, because we are the original masters. So we don't give a damn if you call us clandestine. We are the clan that's destined. The word destined, which means something to which a person or thing is destined. The hidden power to control what will happen in the future, fate. Clan means a group of close-knit and interrelated families. A family, especially a large one. A group of people with a strong common interest. So we are a close-knit of family members who have hidden power to control the future, and we are close-knitted. So you don't have to talk with us. We don't want to talk with you anyway. Why? Because you are sellouts. Just know we know the real truth, and yours is based on slave rituals. They lie and say Benjamin, who was Hall, and 14 others sought and were initiated into Masonry through Lodge number 441 of the Grand Lodge of Ireland on March 6, 1775. The military lodge was attached to the 38th floor. The lodge was attached to the British forces stationed in Boston, Massachusetts. This story they made up to cover up that there were African Moorish temples lodges all over Amaxim and the world for that matter. They claim the so-called Black Masons back then had limited power. When the military lodges left the area, they were given the authority to meet as a lodge, take part in the Masonic procession on St. John's Day, and bury their dead with Masonic rites, but could not confer Masonic degrees or perform any other essential functions of a fully operating lodge. This is a big lie they tell, because they have to cover up the lie about slavery. Unable to create a charter or get one from the Moorish Grand Lodge of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which was now controlled by devils. Benjamin Banneker Bay knew the original rituals and didn't want it getting into the hands of the devils. So Big Ben applied to the Moorish Grand Lodge of England, built in 1713 by Moors. It was called the African Grand Lodge of England at one point. So-called white folk wanted this temple ran by Moors. They lie about the dates to cover up that the Moors built and ran this temple for over 100 years. The Moors who set up this temple were master masons from the Grand Lodge in Timbuktu. They received a charter in 1717 from the Grand Lodge in Timbuktu, which is the lodge Kankan Musa Musa had set up. The first Grand Master was Anthony Sayer Ali, who was a Moor, not a Caucasian. The Caucasians started infiltrating this lodge in 1801 and they had completely took over by 1813. In 1773 the Grand Master of the Moorish Grand Lodge of England at the time was Prince Henry Bey, the Duke of Cumberland, who was King George Bey III, the Moor, younger brother. Henry Bey was born on November 7, 1745 in Hanover, Holy Roman Empire, Germany. He was a Moor, not a so-called white man. Prince Henry Bey issued a charter to Big Ben for African Lodge No. 459 on September 2, 1773. Watch this. This charter was sent to Amaxim on a boat called the Beaver, which arrived in Boston on December 15, 1773. There were 3 other ships that arrived. The Dartmouth on November 28, 1773 and the Eleanor on December 2, 1773. Each of the 3 ships carried more than 100 chests of British East India Company tea owned by King George Bey III, the Moor King of Great Britain. Out of these 3, the charter signed and sealed by Prince William Bey was on the boat called the Beaver. So-called white Freemasons didn't want the now so-called black Masons to get a charter which supersedes their jurisdiction. So-called white Masons cover themselves with dark mud. Then dressed up like Native American Moors with war bonnets and raided the Beaver on December 16, 1773 looking for the charter which was sent by Prince William Bey. Also so-called white convict colonists were frustrated and angry at Britain ran by Moors for imposing taxation without representation. They dumped 342 chests of tea, imported by the British East India Company, into the harbour. They were really after Big Ben Bey's charter. They say this event was the first major act of defiance to British who were Moors' rule over the so-called white convicts colonists. It showed Great Britain that the so-called white convicts who were sent to Amaxim on a work release program wouldn't take taxation and rallied so-called white freemen patriots across the 13 colonies to fight for independence. Now you know what the Boston Tea Party was all about. They found the charter paperwork and destroyed it. So Prince Hall Big Ben never got a charter from England. Which is why mainstream state Grand Lodges ran by so-called white men don't recognize Prince Hall. Don't get mad, wake your behind up and wake up fast. Can't you see we been robbed, brothers? Big Ben Bey later found out that he didn't need a charter. All he needed is 7 free-born Moor master mason to start his temple lodge.